Hey everybody, Jeff Brown coming at you with a brand new tutorial, something that is long overdue. I have a ton of people asking me, Jeff, how do we work with responsive layout? How do we work with different screen sizes and form factors and variable content and all this razzmatazz? Well, there's tons of different strategies. It all depends on what you want to do and the behaviors that you expect for the components on the screen. So let's run through a practical example together, okay? Well, maybe not that practical, but you'll see what I mean. Okay, so I'm in After Effects. I have my main composition, which is just 1920 by 1080. Let's say we're working on a tablet screen or something like that. I'm just going to go ahead and bring in an image. We're going to bring in some elements here, and we'll create a little bit of a screen, a little bit of a layout. So I don't have a background. Maybe I'll go ahead and add a solid. You know, maybe that'll be a black bar in the back middle of the screen. We've got our image centered there, and let's add some text as well. Kind of hard to see that, so I'll make the text black. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Let's see, I'll center that, and then I'll make sure that it's aligned properly on our screen. Okay, so that all looks good to me. Maybe I'll add just a white background as well. I'll be smart and name it. Okay, and I'll push that, wrong size, comp size. Okay, cool. And I'm just gonna push that to the back. So if I were to go ahead and preview this composition, everything appears as expected. That's totally fine. But if I were to resize this screen, we can see, you know, some things are handled automatically, like the background and the bar and even the text, but the image is starting to look a little rotten there. So when I'm talking about, you know, expected results and outcome, you need to kind of have a plan as to what you want to accomplish. So I tend not to worry about responsive design until it becomes a problem. A definite problem for me right now is the way that this image is scaling. So how would I tackle this? A couple of different ways. I might just go ahead and try, you know, we could use layout, but all I really want to do is keep the scaling for that image centered. So maybe I'll go ahead and choose proportional scaling. It adds all these anchors here for me, and basically they're all the same, only they have a different direction. So from the top, from the bottom, from the center, that's exactly what I want, the center. So I can use this little pick whip here and pick the center, or I can use the drop down, and that's basically going to parent to this little null object here, which is actually just a little invisible solid. So now I can go ahead, test this again, and say, okay, cool. So now it's sizing properly, and everything is looking all right for me. But say it becomes an issue with my images now overlapping that text. So I might tackle that a different way. So rather than using these responsive anchors, maybe I'll just go ahead, delete those guys. Let's put this in a layout. I'll keep the background where it is, but I'm going to add these guys. I'm going to pre-compose them, and I'll just call it layout. I could be more descriptive, but I'll just keep that between you and me. All right, so now I'm going to go inside. I have my layout. Well, I need to apply my layout. So what do we want? We could use a column layout, but I've got this bar in the background. Maybe we'll just try a couple of things really quickly here. I'm going to make this a stack layout. Yeah, and I'm going to make it centered. And let's just test that quickly. It's always a good idea to test so that you can check the results as you go. Okay, so it's not everything's centered, but my image is being skewed. I'm not crazy about that. So a little trick working with layout, to get this layout to actually respond to the changes in its parent, that main composition, we need to get them to talk together. To speak, they got to communicate, right? So there's a special anchor here, sizing. I'm going to select that, and this is pretty much used specifically for layout. So I'm going to parent the layout to that sizing anchor, and I'm going to test this again. Okay, now my image is doing the right thing. There's some different stuff going on with that with that background, but let's fix it. So one thing immediately stuck to me, I don't want the text to be centered. So rather than using the default composition gravity of center, I'm going to select that element. I'm going to go to composition gravity. I'm going to say, hey, let's put it, we want it top centered, and maybe add a little bit of padding or margin up at the top there. So that's going to bump it down a little bit. And what else? Okay, that bar was kind of scaling all right, but the edges were getting clipped. So I'm going to actually click this box here that's going to size the width of this layer to fill its parent. Boom. Okay, now I'm going to go back, re-preview, and see if those changes I made actually do what I want. Okay, great. So now I have this super flexible, responsive design that's working for all sorts of different applications. So it's best to have like a desired result, an outcome that you expect, and then work towards that. But if you try to do everything at once, it's confusing, it's easy to get lost. Using responsive anchors as well can be confusing knowing which type to use. So a little trick, I use sizing anchors with layout. I tend not to use very many. The only other ones would be proportional scaling, which is a difference of the height and the width. And you can alternatively choose proportional width or proportional height depending on your layout, your devices, the expected outcomes. So play around with it a little bit, have some fun, and hopefully you get the results that you're after. Thanks for watching. Bye.